By 8:16 a.m. on August 6, 1945, Hiroshima no longer existed as a functioning city. Over 80,000 people were dead or dying. The world had entered the atomic age. But 24 hours earlier, none of this was inevitable. At 8:15 a.m. on August 5th, Hiroshima was an ordinary Japanese city. Children walked to school. Factory workers reported for their shifts. Mothers prepared breakfast. The war felt distant, almost abstract. Air raid sirens had become routine, false alarms that interrupted daily life but rarely brought actual danger. The city had been oddly spared from the devastating firebombing campaigns that had destroyed Tokyo, Osaka, and dozens of other urban centers across Japan. Some residents wondered why. Some felt fortunate. Others suspected they were being saved for something worse. They were correct. Hiroshima in August 1945 was home to approximately 350,000 people. It served as a significant military logistics hub, hosting the Second Army headquarters and functioning as a major supply depot. But it was also a civilian city, filled with families, schools, hospitals, and temples. The Ota River split into 7 channels, creating a distinctive geography that made Hiroshima uniquely beautiful, and tragically, an ideal target. The T-shaped Ioi Bridge near the city center would become the aiming point for the most destructive weapon ever used in warfare. On the morning of August 5th, that bridge was simply a bridge. People crossed it without thought, without fear, without any understanding that within 24 hours it would mark ground zero of a new era in human history. Meanwhile, 2,500 miles away on Tinian Island in the northern Marianas, preparations were reaching their final stage. The 509th Composite Group had been training for months for a mission unlike any other. The aircraft was ready. The weapon was armed. The target list had been finalized. Weather reports were being analyzed. Hiroshima was confirmed. Everything was in motion. This is the story of those final 24 hours. The last day before everything changed. The final rotation of an ordinary world that would never return. August 5th, 1945. 8 cows a.m. Hiroshima time. The morning shift began at the Mitsubishi shipyard. Workers clocked in, their routines unchanged by years of war. The city's streetcars ran their regular schedules, crowded with commuters. Students assembled at schools across the city, many preparing for mandatory demolition work, creating fire breaks by tearing down buildings in designated zones. This labor was intended to prevent firestorms like those that had consumed other Japanese cities. It would prove utterly meaningless. At the Hiroshima Red Cross Hospital, Dr. Terufumi Sasaki started his rounds. Nurses changed shifts. Patients received breakfast. The hospital operated at reduced capacity but still served thousands. Within 24 hours, it would be overwhelmed by casualties beyond imagination. And Dr. Sasaki would work for days without sleep, trying to save whoever he could from injuries medicine had never confronted before. In the Nakamura household, Hatsuyo Nakamura prepared her 3 children for the day. Her husband had died in the war. She worked as a seamstress to support her family. This morning was like any other. Breakfast, preparing the children, small domestic concerns that filled the hours. She had no reason to believe this day would be different. She had no way to know that by tomorrow, she would be fighting to keep her children alive in the ruins. Meanwhile, 1,500 miles south on Tinian Island, the Enola Gay sat on the tarmac of Northfield. Ground crews performed final mechanical checks. Colonel Paul Tibbets, the pilot, had personally selected his crew months earlier. They were the best. They had trained relentlessly. But they still did not know the true nature of their weapon. That briefing would come later. At 11:00 a.m. Hiroshima time, Little Boy was being transported to the loading pit on Tinian. The bomb weighed 9,700 pounds. It was 10 feet long. It contained 141 pounds of enriched uranium. The Manhattan Project had cost $2 billion and employed over 130,000 people. All of that vast effort, all of that scientific genius, all of that industrial capacity had produced this single weapon. It was about to be loaded onto an aircraft. The countdown had truly begun. August 5th, 1945. 6:00 p.m. Hiroshima time. The city transitioned into evening. Workers returned home, families gathered for dinner. The August heat lingered, humid and oppressive. Children played in the streets during the final hours of daylight. Air raid sirens sounded briefly around 7:00 p.m. A single B-29 had been detected approaching. The alert proved false. The aircraft passed overhead without incident. Residents had grown accustomed to these interruptions. The all-clear sounded. Life resumed. No one realized that reconnaissance flights were confirming weather conditions, verifying that Hiroshima remained a viable target. The observation was recorded. The decision was made. On Tinian Island, the mission briefing began at 11:00 p.m. local time, midnight Hiroshima time. 15 men gathered in the briefing room. Colonel Tibbets stood before them. Behind him, a map. On that map, a single word: Hiroshima. This was the moment the crews learned their target. Captain Robert Lewis, co-pilot, wrote in his journal. He described the briefing as matter-of-fact, professional. Navy Captain William Parsons, the weaponeer, explained what they would be carrying. He used terms like special bomb and unique destructive force. He did not say atomic. He did not say uranium. He did not fully describe what would happen, perhaps because no one truly understood. This weapon had never been used in combat. The Trinity test in New Mexico had demonstrated its power, but that had been in an empty desert. This would be different. This would be a city. Parsons explained the arming procedure. For safety, final assembly would happen in flight. He would crawl into the bomb bay after takeoff and complete the arming sequence. This had never been done before. Everything about this mission was unprecedented. After the briefing, the crews were served a special meal: real eggs, sausage, foods that had become luxuries. Some ate heartily, others barely touched their plates. Chaplain William Downey offered prayers. Some men accepted, others declined. At 1:00 a.m. Tinian time, 2:00 a.m. Hiroshima time, the crews headed to their aircraft. 3 weather reconnaissance planes had already departed. The Enola Gay would follow. Colonel Tibbets had named the aircraft after his mother. Her name would become inseparable from what was about to happen. August 6, 1945, 2:00 a.m., Hiroshima time. The city slept. Streetlights had been extinguished years ago to prevent guiding enemy bombers. Darkness covered everything. Families rested in their homes. Night shift workers maintained essential services. Guards patrolled military installations. The Ota River flowed silently through its 7 channels. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. At 2:27 a.m. Hiroshima time, the weather reconnaissance aircraft Straight Flush reported from over Hiroshima. Cloud cover, less than 3/10. Visibility, good. The city was clearly visible below. The report was transmitted. On Tinian, the message was received. Hiroshima was confirmed as primary target. At 2:45 a.m. Hiroshima time, the Enola Gay lifted off from Northfield runway. Colonel Tibbets commanded. Captain Lewis handled controls. Navigator Theodore Van Kirk plotted the course. Bombardier Thomas Farabee would aim the weapon. Tail gunner Bob Caron would photograph the results. 12 men total, 1 aircraft, 1 bomb. The B-29 climbed steadily, circling to gain altitude. At 3:00 a.m., Captain Parsons and his assistant Lieutenant Morris Jepson entered the bomb bay. Using only flashlights in the cramped, dark space, they began the arming sequence. They inserted the explosive charges. They connected the firing mechanisms. They worked carefully, methodically, One mistake could detonate the weapon, destroying the aircraft and everyone aboard. Or it could render the bomb inert, wasting years of effort. They made no mistakes. The arming took 15 minutes. Little Boy was now fully operational. At 4 a.m. Hiroshima time, the city remained asleep. A few early risers began their day. Bakers prepared for morning deliveries. Temple monks conducted pre-dawn rituals. Night workers completed their shifts. The eastern sky showed no hint of dawn yet. Darkness still dominated. At 5:30 a.m., the first light appeared on the horizon. The sun would rise at 6 a.m., another August day beginning. Hot, humid, ordinary. Workers would soon wake. Children would prepare for school. The city would come to life as it always did. But this day would be different. This day would end everything. The Enola Gay was 5 hours away, closing distance at 200 miles per hour, carrying 141 pounds of uranium in the future. August 6, 1945, 6:00 a.m., Hiroshima time. The sun rose over the city. The temperature was already climbing. It would reach 80 degrees by mid-morning. Families woke. Breakfast was prepared. Radio broadcasts provided news, though information was heavily censored. The war situation was described as difficult but manageable. No one spoke of imminent defeat, though everyone suspected the truth. At 7:09 a.m., air raid sirens sounded across Hiroshima. A single B-29 had been detected approaching from the south. People moved toward shelters, but without panic. Single aircraft rarely meant danger. They were usually reconnaissance planes. After circling the city, the aircraft departed. The all-clear sounded at 7:31 a.m. Residents returned to their routines. This had been the weather reconnaissance plane, confirming conditions one final time. The report transmitted: target clear. Proceed with mission. By 8 a.m., Hiroshima was fully active. Approximately 43,000 soldiers were stationed in the city. Another 300,000 civilians went about their daily lives. Students assembled for demolition duty in open areas throughout the city. This would prove catastrophic. Thousands of schoolchildren would be outside, completely exposed when the moment came. The Enola Gay approached from the northeast, flying at 31,000 feet. At 8:09 a.m., Hiroshima came into view. Bombardier Farabee identified the Ioi Bridge through his Norden bomb sight. The distinctive T-shape was unmistakable. He made minor adjustments. The aircraft flew straight and level. At 8:13 a.m., 2 additional B-29s joined formation. The great artiste carried scientific instruments. Necessary Evil carried cameras. All 3 aircraft would need to be far away when detonation occurred. At 8:14 a.m. and 30 seconds, some residents noticed aircraft overhead. 3 planes, high altitude. No sirens sounded. 3 planes did not constitute a raid. People glanced up briefly, then continued their activities. At 8:15 a.m. and 15 seconds, Little Boy fell from the Enola Gay's bomb bay. It would fall for 43 seconds, dropping nearly 6 miles. Farabee watched it fall. The Enola Gay immediately banked hard right, diving away to gain distance. The 2 accompanying aircraft did the same. In Hiroshima below, no one knew anything had been released. The bomb fell silently through clear morning air. At 8:15 a.m. and 58 seconds, Little Boy detonated. The fireball measured around 200 feet in diameter. Surface temperature reached several million degrees. Everything within a half-mile radius was instantly vaporized. People, buildings, trees, vehicles. They simply ceased to exist. The thermal pulse that followed ignited everything flammable within a mile and a half. Thousands of fires erupted simultaneously. The shockwave traveled at over 700 miles per hour. It flattened nearly 5 square miles of urban area. Approximately 70,000 buildings were destroyed or severely damaged. The mushroom cloud rose to 40,000 feet within minutes. It was visible for over 200 miles. On the Enola Gay, tail gunner Bob Caron witnessed the explosion. He described it as a purple-gray cloud boiling upward. The shock wave reached the aircraft twice, first from direct blast, then from ground reflection. The plane shuddered but remained intact. Colonel Tibbets later stated he could taste atomic fission in his mouth. By 8:30 a.m., Hiroshima was burning. The firestorm would continue for hours. Medical facilities were destroyed or overwhelmed. Dr. Sasaki survived, trapped briefly under debris, then worked frantically to treat thousands of casualties with injuries unlike anything medical science had documented. Radiation sickness would not be understood for days. By evening, approximately 80,000 people were dead. Another 70,000 were injured. Thousands more would die from radiation exposure in the following weeks, months, and years. The final death toll would exceed 200,000. On August 9th, a second atomic bomb destroyed Nagasaki. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender. World War II ended. But the atomic age had begun. The world now possessed weapons capable of destroying civilization. That reality persists today. Hiroshima became a symbol, not just of destruction, but of the imperative to prevent nuclear war. The city was rebuilt. Survivors shared their stories. The atomic bomb dome, one of the few structures that partially survived near Ground Zero, was preserved as a memorial. It stands today as a reminder. One day, one decision, one weapon, everything changed. This was day falling. One day, everything changes.